right. Good afternoon. Will staff please confirm quorum?
President Huddleston.
Here.
Past President Whittick.
Present.
Director Altamirano. Director Ritz.
Here.
Director Arson.
Present.
Director Groves.
Here.
Quorum is present.
A quorum being present, the June 4th meeting of Strategic Housing Finance Corporation Board of Directors is hereby called to order at 1:34 p.m. We'll now move to agenda item 2, citizen communication. Do we have any registered speakers?
Ms. Carnahan, do we have any registered
We do
speakers?
not.
Thank you.
Seeing that we have no registered speakers, we will now move on to the director's report. I recognize Executive Director Diana Gray for the report.
Thank you, President Huddleston. Our report will be brief today, and one thing I want to point out, before I dive into the April 30th financials, is that when you look at charters later in today's meeting, you will see that the new charter of proposed new charter of finance and administration talks about quarterly financial analysis, and so we can always come more often if requested by the board, but as a matter of habit, we would begin to come to you quarterly. So at the end of April, we had not quite $25 million in cash on hand. That includes fully funded housing production fund, portfolio fund, and operating reserve. Taking into account the operating reserve and the cash that is not in designated funds, we have over 17 months of operating cash on hand currently. We are in a strong cash position, but we do continue to have slower than hoped for revenue. In the first part of the year, we are at just over a third of our budgeted revenue for the first 4 months of the year. I will say, and I think this is detailed more in your board book, that this pattern is fairly consistent with what we saw last year, where the first several months of the year were quite slow and much of the revenue does occur later in the year, just to keep all of our blood pressures adequately high. We are, however, below budget on expenditure. We're at about 70%. We have some larger expenditures later in the year that we think will get us closer to budget, but certainly are coming in currently well under our budgeted expenses. So all those things together give us year-to-date net assets of about $25.6 million. I'm happy to answer any questions, or Director Adams will, on the financials, should you have them.
Do any of the board members have any questions for Executive Director Gray?
Excellent. So here we are sharing with you a few calendar items and reminders. We will be probably rescheduling our executive committee meetings once we have a new VP elected later this meeting, but want to point out a couple of items to you. Tuesday the 16th, we will, staff is planning a site visit to Cambridge Villas. So if that is of interest to you, please reach out to Jenny and she will coordinate with you. We also anticipate, this is tentative, but Travis County has indicated that its general plan is to select our next director at the June 23rd board meeting. The applicants are posted as of today, and I believe there are 6. And so we think next Tuesday they will select who they intend to interview. Finally, I would say that we have the Texas Association of Affordable Housing Providers Conference here in Austin, late July. It is large. There's certainly a lot of quite a lot of content and opportunity to meet with folks. If you're interested in attending that also, feel free to reach out to Jenny. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Executive Director Gray? Thank you for the report. At this time, the board will enter into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, personnel matters. The specific item which may be discussed in executive session is agenda item 4A related to executive director evaluation criteria. Is there a motion to enter your executive session? Director Winnig. Is there a second? Director Arce. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. For those not attending executive session, kindly clear the room. For executive session, we request the presence of Jenny, Eileen, and Katie. The board is now back into open session at 2:36. We will now return to our consent agenda, item 5A. The consent agenda includes the following items: approval of the minutes from the May 7th, 2026 regular meeting. Are there any requests from directors to remove an item on the consent agenda for separate consideration? Hearing none, are there any objections to approving the consent agenda as presented? No objections. Hearing no objections, the consent agenda is approved. We will now move to voting items. I'd like to begin with agenda item 6A. This item has been discussed in executive session. The chair will now entertain a motion.
I move adoption of the Executive Director Evaluation Criteria for 2026 as presented to the board.
Thank you. Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded the board approve voting item 6A. I will now open the floor up for questions. Any questions, comments? I will now open the floor for discussion. Any discussion? Great. Hearing none, the discussion is closed. We will now proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. We will now move to consider voting item 6E. As you know, Director Carrie Dorman recently concluded her service on this board. Director Dorman also served as Vice President, so today we will have the opportunity to elect a new director to that role. The chair will now entertain a motion nominating a candidate for the Vice President position. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to nominate Director Catherine Groves.
Great. Is there a second? Director Winnig. It has been moved and seconded that the board elect Director Groves as Vice President effective immediately. I will now open the floor for questions or discussions. Any questions? Any discussions?
Can we get a picture of the new VP with the board president?
We haven't voted yet.
Can we do?
Yes, Director Winnig.
Yes, I wanted to ask Director Groves if she'd like to comment on her putting her hat in the ring for this nomination, and anything she wants to tell the directors writ large about serving in this way.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the nomination and the opportunity to serve in additional capacities that I understand the board needs, and excited to work in new capacities. You know, I come from 20 years of community development finance experience, and you know, I'm really passionate about affordable housing and affordable housing finance. So I look forward to kind of leveraging those professional skills to support this group and its mission.
Great. Thank you, Director Groves. Are there any further comments? Hearing none, the discussion is closed. We will now proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I don't know if I vote for myself.
You do.
Okay, I guess I do.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries. Congratulations. Exciting. The next three items all directly or indirectly relate to the governance work we've been carrying out with our consultant, Nonprofit Advising. I'd like to invite Eileen Garcia to provide background on items 6B, 6C, and 6D, which relate to committee charters, board member expectations, and engaging general counsel. Eileen will present on all three items. I will note, however, that we will be taking questions and discussion on each agenda item separately after the presentation. Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity to sort of provide an overall update on where we are from that conversation that began back in January. So that's why I brought my old graphic, which hopefully rings bells for you, on kind of the two lanes, and why I was asked to engage with strategic from the start was really, especially as organizations move out of the startup phase, sometimes things can get a little unclear on what the lanes are, what's the function of a board, what's the function of staff. And so my engagement with the organization has really focused on sort of those places of clarity that we can create on governance and management. And to that point, you have a few products that have been developed through the committees that are at a culmination point, that are a place for your deliberation today. And so the three specific recommendations that I had, and hopefully you recall from the video that I provided to you as well. The three that I'm calling out today because they relate to agenda items. The first is board member expectations. It's something I always recommend to organizations to get really clear, explicit on what is the role, based on the duty of care and loyalty and obedience. What does that mean for the organization? What does it mean to show care? What is the specific attendance requirement, for example? But also, just as you continue to clarify those lanes of governance and management, getting clear on what you can expect in terms of communications with staff. Those communications that should be going through the executive director, what expectations you can have or are outside of your norms in terms of requests, et cetera. So what this looks like for each organization needs to be different based upon your own needs and what the board feels it can adhere to, what staff needs. And so it's not a one size fits all by any means, but my starting place with strategic was that you should adopt something formally. And it's not that you had nothing. Within the board manual, there were all sorts of bits and pieces that kind of spoke to these expectations. Some of it was permissive, so we recommend, it's a good idea to, versus some things that were spoken of as hard and fast requirements. So pulling together those essential pieces in a more succinct way, and then my recommendation to you is to, once you get to a place of yes, we can commit to this, adopting it, which would hopefully happen today, then all board members committing to it subsequent to this. There would be an annual recommitment. That's a recommendation of mine, just to keep those fresh. And just as you look at, wow, am I going to continue on next year? Am I able to fulfill this? Being really clear on what you are recommitting to in that process. And then once you have something like that is concrete and explicit, then having continuous reminders, I would suggest including the document within your board book, just so everyone keeps getting eyes on it and it becomes part of the language. And then you can enforce it with each other. Hopefully we'll get to a point where it's so part of your culture and norms and expectations that even board member to board member, you might say, oh, remember, we're really going to try to avoid urgency on this. So we're not going to ask the staff to turn this around for tomorrow when really we have 3 weeks before we need this, et cetera. So it provides a common language to both guide behavior but allow for kind of a safe way to, rather than be talking about is this what a good board member does or doesn't do, you have very explicit things that you can hold yourselves and each other to. So that's the first document that I kind of had my hand in, that I brought to the executive committee, and then the executive committee shaped it to what is needed and best given the experience of strategic in particular. Defining the scope of committees, I've worked with all of your committees now on charters. Each committee has been having that parallel process, and the purpose of that is there's a few benefits of having explicit charters. One is if a matter arises, there's clarity on what committee should be looking at this. It also gives the chair kind of a roadmap of here's are the tasks that we need to look at for the year. But also, sometimes when there's just a title of a committee or a vague allusion to what a committee should be looking at, it can be easy to think that anything that touches that realm is an appropriate place for a board member to be weighing in, for a board to be making a decision. But rather, having that scope of the committees really gets to, these are the governance functions that are related to this domain. So it's another way to sort of strengthen that delineation between management and governance. And then the last recommendation that is relevant to today's deliberation, and I'll get to what this specifically looks like in a second, is committees as the central forum for deliberation. So not just information sharing, not just a sort of hash that then gets rehashed at the board level, but that the committees, to use an analogy that came out at the last board meeting, they're the folks that are baking the pie, right? So the board is not a rubber stamp, so you can say no to the pie, you can say no, I wanted apple, not pumpkin, you can say that I don't want pie at all, but that there has been that thorough bringing together of data, so there's a good product that the board can then deliberate on. And what that, the related piece here, I won't go into great detail here because you've all seen this within the committees, but what this, the two little orange blocks are the ones that I'll draw your attention to. The idea being that within the committees, the chair is bringing together the committee to really do the deliberation, determine what information do we need to make a good decision. It goes through the process so that then at the board meeting, the committee chair feels really empowered to be the advocate for a recommendation. And I provide this background to get to general counsel. So how does this all connect? What does it have to do with general counsel? Well, as I began working with strategic, and I realized general counsel had been floated even before I ever engaged with the organization. But what became really apparent is by the nature of who you are and what you do as an organization, you are dealing with matters of great risk, compliance, and expense. And that's generally the case when we talk about legal matters, but as an organization that's working on matters of real estate, you're encountering these with greater frequency than a lot of other organizations out there. And risk, compliance, and expense especially because it has consequences for overall organizational sustainability, because it has impact to the budget, which is a board deliberation and a board decision. When we're talking about legal matters, that's something that the board still needs to hold close and still needs to have direction and oversight of. So you might be thinking, yeah, but strategic had a committee to look at precisely these matters. But in working through the committees, this has been sort of a realignment of committee work. Some committees were already pretty darn close to that little flow chart that I suggested, but some were not. And it became really clear that there was a fundamental misalignment with LEMCO and the overall committee structure, and it looks like this. It was not a standing committee. It was a committee that was brought together to come take care of a thing and go away, despite the fact that indeed, by the nature of the work you do, there is an ongoing need for oversight in this area. Also, it was specific to one matter of litigation, when again, the potential areas for legal oversight are much more vast than that one area. And then, in addition, the board had given the executive director guidance and direction to then move forward on legal matters. But at the same time, LEMCO was this advisory committee brought together to advise the executive director. So board members, so they still have this governance function, they're in this committee, but at the same time, that sort of authority had already by the board been given to the executive director. So you have this sort of mismatch where while the other committees are doing these deliberations to bring recommendations to the board's going directly to the executive director on some things, and then has this sort of advisory committee. So general counsel, where would general counsel fit into this whole picture? What would general counsel do? Well, general counsel would serve to advise both the board and the executive director. The board, because as I was saying, these are largely governance matters. There are, however, matters that fall pretty cleanly within the management bucket, so this could be a resource for both the board and the executive director. Largely, they would evaluate agreements and policies and other major decisions for those compliance consequences, looking at potential risk. And then, of course, the external world is not static. So as you have changes in statute, as you have changes in regulations, the general counsel would reevaluate your agreements, would look at the landscape and see how you might need to shift as an organization. And I really love the way that Bea articulated actually something very close to this last point during the last board meeting about sort of talking about it not being just one legal need, but there's an array of things that the organization does and that need for specialization. I think of it akin to the general practitioner. You'll go to the general practitioner, they'll give you a sense of what might be an issue, something that you need to take care of. And if it's a splinter, yeah, they might take it out right there in your meeting. So there might be some performance of services in the moment. But if you have ankle surgery, your general practitioner isn't going to say, yeah, roll up your sock, I've got this. They'll determine when you need that specialized additional counsel and can direct those services as well. Okay. Full candor, this is not my exhaustive, extensive research. This is quick websites information. So, but looking at some of your counterparts. So Austin HFC, it's not that, oh, they can rely on the city attorney. They actually name within their leadership structure the city attorney as their general counsel. Capital area, they had a fractional in place until the end of 2025. That was a solo practitioner that they engaged as general counsel. HATC works with a firm, and I use this language because it's pulled directly from the RFP that they had online. And their general counsel was called to work directly with the board as well as directly with the executive director. And then Harris County has an attorney from the county attorney's office named as their general counsel. Okay. So how it could work. So I'm taking reporting separate from, is this internal, is this someone that you're contracting out with? We'll talk about that in the next slide. But in terms of who general counsel would report to, one model is to report to the executive director. And I want to note, this is actually the most common one that I encounter within organizations, is reporting to the executive director. It's muddy, and I don't recommend it in this particular situation, and I don't know that there are many situations where I do recommend it, but it can happen, and the board would provide oversight and guidance on legal matters. It would, on this one, it would be indirect from the board. So it would all be through the executive director. You would hold the executive director responsible for those legal outcomes. There is a little funky business here, and I am not your general counsel, so I'm not going to go deep in the weeds here. But if you have general counsel, especially if you go the employee route, there is a little funny business in that by their own ethical standards, attorneys can't report to a non-attorney, so they would still have to have independent legal judgment if your executive director is not an attorney. They could report to the board. So the board providing that direct oversight and guidance, getting direct communications from general counsel, and then you would hold general counsel responsible for those legal outcomes. My recommendation is a hybrid, with the board retaining that direct oversight and direct communications about governance matters, so the litigation, mitigating organizational risk, etc. But things like Diana might need a separation agreement with an employee. She should be able to contact general counsel and direct that. So things that are within that management bucket. In this scenario, the board would hold general counsel responsible for those overall legal outcomes, and the executive director would be accountable for the compliance with that legal guidance and with that legal strategy. Now, taking it to that, so is that an employee? Is it outsourced? Certainly, you could have an employee if you did it with. You could do it as a full-time. You could do it as a part-time. The work would be controlled by strategic, and strategic, of course, would then have to cover the expenses and provide resources, including things like supervision, administrative support, and evaluation. Again. This is, I'll go right up to my line, but won't seek to step over it. But when you have general counsel that is your employee as a corporation, you assume the decisions of your employees. You take on risk and liability for those legal decisions. So strategic would be assuming the risk there. If we talk about outsource, which is my recommendation to you, and is also in keeping with what the executive committee has put forth in their resolution, you have the potential for reducing costs by eliminating overhead. I'm not going to say it will reduce cost, it's a potential, right? Because the way that they structure fees, that you might not gain that benefit. But what you certainly would gain is the potential to have flexibility in how you structure the engagement, which I think will be key, because this will be new for you. So determining what you need in terms of hours, you might need some flex there, but also my guess for you is that there'll be times when you need a whole lot of general counsel and times when you don't need so much general counsel. So that fluidity, I think, will be important to you, and it certainly isn't something you can build into a full or part-time structure. You'd have the reduced administrative oversight, so not those issues of how do we evaluate this individual. You would remove that outside of sort of the contract evaluation, like you do with your auditor, right? You maintain that oversight. You can say we're not contracting with you, we're firing our auditor, but it's a whole different level of evaluation. And then the next piece, that liability, when you're contracting with a firm, they have malpractice insurance, right? So that liability somewhat shifts. So I will actually power forward since we're a little past time here. So kind of the big takeaways I have for you are that the advantages in having general counsel is that your staff time would be reallocated to where staff actually hold the greatest expertise. This is not an area that any of these folks were hired to take on as central to their function, but it has become a central part of at least how the last few months have been spent. Board would retain oversight over what is a governance matter. You could still hold on to that. You'd have the specialized expertise for matters that are indeed highly regulated and have a high potential cost and high complexity. But my favorite one for you is really bullet 4, the allowing for mitigation of risk. There was a good conversation at the last board meeting about what would be different with the matter that has arisen. What would be different had there been general counsel? And I think the question really isn't so much general counsel and counsel on this particular matter of litigation, but could you indeed have never been in this position in the first place, of having general counsel evaluate, these are the risks I see, this is the way that I think you should be doing due diligence in this situation, and have avoided it completely. So I've talked a lot. I will pause there, though I know also you'll be taking them one by one. But any questions or reactions to any of that?
Great. We will take questions one by one. So if there's no general reaction,
Yes.
we will continue. We will now consider voting item 6B, which adopts charters for each of our board committees. The chair will now entertain a motion. Is there a motion? Director Winning, is there a second? Director Arce. It has been moved and seconded that the board approve voting item 6B. The motion is before us to approve the resolution as presented. I will now open the floor for questions. Any questions on the charters? Hearing none, we'll now open the floor for discussion. Does anyone have, yes.
Just a quick comment on the Finance and Administration Charter. And we have Katie Adams here. Moving to a quarterly cadence for the finances to the board will really allow us to look at patterns and trends, as opposed to something that I think it was, Eileen, you might have used this term, I loved it, monthly wiggles. Like, there are monthly wiggles that are not really worth the time of, interrogating Ms. Adams and going back and forth about. If something establishes itself as a pattern or establishes itself as a trend, and I think we do have some of those, we'll see them more readily in a quarterly report. Also, net savings on employee time. So we will have freed up Director Adams for some other, to be able to do her job however she pleases. But less drain on her for these monthly reports. So I just wanted to say that when we deliberated as a committee, this is one of the things we endorsed.
Great, thank you, Director Winning. Any further discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. We will now proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries. We'll now consider voting item 6C, which adopts board member expectations. The chair will now entertain a motion. Is there a motion? Director Groves. Is there a second? Director Arce. It has been moved and seconded that the board approve voting item 6C. The motion before us is to approve the resolution as presented. I will now open the floor up for questions. Any questions? Director Winning.
On the list, the 11 item list of board member expectations, first of all, I'm really in favor of getting these fleshed out and getting them utilized both for our board packet, but for onboarding, and just a great thing. So I was curious about number 10, and I don't know how many people have it in front of them, but it says generally approach deliberations with maximum all bold transparency, providing strong partnership and timely information to staff, and providing accountability to the public. I just wondered, how do we measure achievement on that one? Is there a discussion from XCOM, perhaps they could address this, of when and how to use the public forum as a place to engage with citizens? I'm just unclear how that one gets implemented.
With citizens in particular?
Accountability to the public. Maximum transparency.
Right. I don't believe that we have any additional policies, procedures, other than what we're currently doing in order to further that at the moment. I think it's more of a act transparently and give full information where needed. Eileen, do you have any additional feedback on that?
Yeah, just that in adhering, so if there are adopted processes and adopted committees and board meetings, right, and all of these sort of decision points of deliberation, that to the extent that you use those as the points of deliberation, that does provide a level of transparency to the public on how are decisions getting made? Who is the chair? How is all of this happening? So there's that softer level to it. I think it also, though, in terms of where the organization can move from here, it does implicate also what I know some things that are already kind of floating around under finance and administration's consideration as well, in terms of what that could look like in terms of sharing out in building out more processes around sharing out for the public as well.
Yeah, I was really curious because we've had trends of using our public forum and trends of not using the public forum, how we plan or want to use it. And since deliberations of committees are not public, is that where you want that put? I'm just trying to get clear.
So I'm hearing that there might be a request for, or there is a request on kind of a guideline on how we're using form.
Well, yeah, I'm just looking at what was the legislative intent of those who drafted this language. I just want to hear what you had in mind. You don't have to change anything. I just want to hear what you had in mind so I can follow it.
Yeah. For me, I think it's really just like acting with transparency. I think the way that we've used the board form in the past, particularly on the budget items, and making sure that that is like transparent and able for the public to see the director's comments on it, is a very good use of it. Is there request for additional ways to use it?
That's my question. Are you requesting that board chairs get hooked to the public forum?
So in terms of what the committee discussed at the time, that was not, as you said, the legislative intent, that was not, but rather the intent was to describe what are the forums of deliberation, so that if a committee is indeed the forum within which that decision is being made, holding to, that's where the communication happens. The board meeting, that's where it happens. So that the amount of deliberation happening outside sort of it gets almost into the walking quorum consideration, but taking that a step further to sort of walking committees even, right? Like, so sorry to mix what is a legal term with sort of a metaphor here, but rather that if we have a process for deliberation, let's hold to those processes and let's hold to those places. But I think what you raise, Jan, is an interesting, while I understand you were seeking clarity on a particular process thing, on whether to use forum in that way, I think that larger conversation could certainly happen about how do we ensure that the products of committee deliberations then are shared with staff in a timely way, are shared with the public in a timely way, and there might be further refining of those mechanisms that should maybe be considered within the committees as well.
Thank you. I have one other question. About the, I don't have the number here, but about clarifying in a really good and concrete way how to manage emails and who to CC through emails. Is there a symmetry if a director is receiving an email from the ED that the president would be CC'd on that? So as I understand it, anytime a director is reaching out to staff or CCing the ED, but if it's a CC, Eileen said you don't add the president. Only if it's directly on the to line, then you add the president as a CC. So I'm just trying to get clear. If somebody wants to speak to this and get me out of my mire, that'd be fine.
If I could, because Jan reached out to me for clarification on this. So please correct me, Jan, if I am misstating your question. It was, so if we CC, I'm not trying to communicate with Diana. I just want to communicate with Jim. And so I CC'd Diana. But that means it's a communication to Diana. So do I now need to loop in Ashley? To which my my guidance was that is not how I would interpret this piece, but rather, if you are seeking to communicate with Jim, yes, CC Diana. She's just a CC, then I'm not really seeking to communicate with her. If I'm seeking to communicate with her, I want to tell Diana something, then yes, I need to CC Ashley.
And also, if I can summarize some clarification, if you've already established, for instance, in F&A that the point person is Ms. Adams, I don't continue to CC DG.
You do,
Oh, you changed that, okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah,
Got
and, yeah, and that was definitely a point of conversation on whether that would totally flood Diana's inbox, but right, your indication was that it would be
It's fine.
manageable. It's fine.
She's managed, thank you. And in symmetry, if ED reaches out to director, CC goes to president. Is there symmetry in this?
That point there was not symmetry on.
Okay.
Um,
Guidance?
Guidance, I don't feel that it's, I don't feel that there's a need for that in the way there is for the reciprocal because of the power differential that, all of you are evaluating, right, and
Yep.
hiring and the power of hire and fire and all of that business. So I don't know that I see the need for it. I don't think it's harmful, and if the board wanted to do something else on that, but I don't,
Got it.
yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Director Winning. Is there any, I will now open the floor up for discussion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the discussion is closed. We will now proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. We will now consider voting item 6D. The chair will now entertain a motion. Is there a motion? Director Prince, is there a second?
Second.
Director Groves. It has been moved and seconded that the board approve voting item 6D. The motion has been approved and the resolution as presented. I will now open the floor for questions. Any questions on proposals for general counsel? Hearing none, I will now open the floor for discussion. Is there any discussion? Director Winnick.
Just wanted to contextualize where we are right now with the dissolution of LUMCO, and we're sort of in this limbo space where we don't have a GC yet.
Mhm.
We're about to vote in a process, but this could be a 3-month process, a 2-month process, a 5-month process, who knows how long this could be. And just to sort of reinforce what LUMCO, as a former LUMCO lady, had instilled as a process, and I would like to consider whether that would be a good thing to reinforce during this interim time. We had requested that there be monthly communications from council to the board in the form of a memo at the beginning of each month. And sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. But it seems even more important now to reinforce that, and that the directors and XCOM obviously is filling in the interim, have that kind of documentation and some kind of written report while we await this response to the need for a general counsel.
Right, just for a clarifying question, that practice has been in place with counsel on a particular set of litigation, but not broadly. We have other litigation. Am I hearing that while it's not sort of a subject to the vote, the general direction or desire would be to have monthly reports on litigation?
I was addressing the dissolution of LUMCO, which was specific to the Dwayne Morris litigation, but let's discuss, now that I don't even know how much the directors were aware that LUMCO was confined to just Dwayne Morris. Unless you were in the weeds, it may be a bit blurry. So how shall we proceed with reporting to the board during this interim process?
Yes.
I might, since it's not part of the resolution today, I will work, would it work for me to work with executive committee who is sort of tasked with managing the legal oversight for the moment? And they'll let us know how we should coordinate with, because we have multiple attorneys.
Yeah, I think we can definitely discuss monthly communication from council on all outstanding legal issues. And we'll discuss
Great.
that in executive committee. Does that, or do you have further requests?
Any comments from our organizational consultant on this issue and how you envisioned the interim?
Yeah.
Because the resolution doesn't embrace that.
I think having the regular reporting from council to the board in some manner would be important. Now, whether that's to the executive committee or the full board, I think either would be appropriate. I think there is value in having the executive committee for a couple reasons, in that, again, sort of as a deliberating body, also as the agenda setters, to then determine at what point would it be valuable to, just because council is also costly, right? Determining at what point it would be useful to have council attend board meetings as needed. So I think direct to the board could work. I think there might be some value in having it right to the executive committee in terms of that, having that deliberation point and being able to do something more meaningful with it than it just being in the board packet.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the discussion is closed. We will now proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. The next two items on our agenda have been proposed by the Tenant Affairs Committee. I understand that Ms. Garcia has also had a short presentation on these items. Chair Arce, would you like to make any comments before Ms. Garcia presents?
Yes, I do. So, thank you, Eileen, for being so helpful. So the Tenant Affairs Committee was created to make sure the strategic is tenant-centered and takes into account tenant input in its decision-making. So we want to provide guidance, but we don't want to micromanage staff. With that in mind, we are presenting 2 policies, tenant investment guidelines, and a tenant outreach education strategy. As a newly formed committee, we've been working diligently with both Jim, our staff, and our consultant, Eileen. I'm going to ask Eileen to now provide an overview of both policies.
Thank you. And so the idea behind the investment guidelines, as Bea stated, is to really just provide a framework. So the assumption here, this is not a directive for staff will spend money on these particular things. This is the board has budget oversight. The board determines whether there are resources to put towards investing in services or other supports and resources for tenants. The idea here, though, is at the same time you have a tenant affairs committee which has participation from the tenant reps. It has participation from other committee members as well, and providing a framework for decision making so that staff does not have to call for a board decision about every time they want to invest in something for tenants, but that those investments are in alignment with the intention that the board had. So that's the intention behind this tool that Tenant Affairs developed. The first being that any investments that are made really should be a tool for positive relationships with tenants across properties. The next being that those investments would provide benefits that would stand on their own without creating an expectation that strategic would not be able to fulfill in the future. That it would not provide favorable treatment for any property or subset of properties unless there's a critical need, and this one goes hand in hand with the other bullet that the committee discussed and is presenting before you. which is, so at the same time that there would be a prioritization based on need, on tenants most in need of support, there's an understanding that Strategic doesn't have a whole lot of money to spend in this area. It has some, and it has made some investments, but generally we're not talking about a large pool of funds. So prioritization of those most in need, not with the expectation that you'll get to a place of equal treatment of tenants across all properties, but that you would move to what is equitable. So as you had more resources, more and more tenants could be brought into that fold, but again, with that prioritization for who needs it the most. So any questions on this piece?
I guess I have a question. Maybe I just don't fully understand the terminology and what resources we're talking about. So it's the Tenant Affairs Committee investment guidelines, investment, like a pool of money, or I guess I'm just trying to understand the terminology. I absolutely think this is needed. I just don't quite know what we're saying, I suppose.
I'm happy to answer based on the conversations in the committee, but I also invite any committee members that want to speak to it, but me too, otherwise. So it has been from sort of in-kind supports. So there have been meals provided. There has been at one point in time there was a big investment pool specific to some of those legacy issues, but also realizing that as community events happen, which we'll talk about community events a little bit more when we talk about outreach and education, but that's another resource, right? So things that are being done to invest in.
So resources could change and mold over time, but this is
Yes.
the framework guiding them. Great,
Exactly
thank you very
right.
much for the clarification.
Yeah.
Further. We will now consider voting item 6F, Tenant Affairs Committee Investment Guidelines. The chair will now entertain a motion. Is there a motion? Director Wenig? Is there a second? Director Arce? It has been moved and seconded that the board approve voting item 6F. The motion before us is to approve the resolution as presented. I will now open the floor for questions. Further questions? I will now open the floor for discussion. Hearing none, the discussion is closed. We will now proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No? The motion carries.
Great. And so this, the committee developed this very much within that same, with that same idea as we described, of really not seeking to micromanage staff, but at the same time provide some guidance on what is the purpose of outreach and education, and who should that be, who should be the primary audience for those tenant outreach and education efforts. So the goals that the committee defined were providing general information on rights and on basic tenant rights, as well as referral sources for tenants across Strategic's properties. Also, a goal being being a good partner to tenant rights organizations. So usually, often those will work in alignment, but it's a separate goal in and of itself to build that relationship. A great discussion that came up in the committee that led to this third bullet was that the tenants' rights organizations are a great resource, but that's some folks aren't connected to those, and sometimes those are the tenants who most need to understand their rights and most need those referral sources. So to the extent that the organization is doing those community outreach events, which is something that currently there's a line item for, leveraging that opportunity to specifically seek to reach those tenants who might not otherwise be reached. So I can take any questions there if you'd like, but if not, I'll move to priorities.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, and in terms of priorities, the committee identified that those properties that are that have come into have come on the radar as properties of concern, those would be a point of priority. And some of those properties of concern, it might be multiple code violators, having a high number of delayed work orders, or other things that as Strategic continues to pull information together with its risk management tool might come on the radar as being points of concern. In addition, tenants that have reached out to the tenant associations, to the tenant advocacy groups, which I believe at this point there's only one, but as that might expand, or who have reached out directly to Strategic. And the committee had a great subsequent discussion, but tied back to this as well, that as the committee continues to engage in these processes and thinks about input, it might be that risk management tool is kind of the guiding force, but it also might become clear that there are other factors that are also not being captured in the tool that are indicative of a positive or a negative tenant experience. So prioritizing tenants that you're hearing from directly, as well as those that would be indicated are likely of concern given the risk management tool. So.
Thank you, Eileen. We will now consider voting item 6G, adopting a tenant outreach and education strategy. The chair will now entertain a motion. Is there a motion? Director Prince, is there a second? Director Arce? It has been moved and seconded that the board approve voting item 6F. The motion before us is to approve the resolution as presented. I will now open the floor for questions. Any questions? Hearing none. I will now open the floor for discussion. All right. Hearing none, the discussion is closed. We will now proceed to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. If all business has been concluded, there is no further business on our agenda. The meeting is adjourned at 3:27. Having reached our scheduled end time, is there a motion to adjourn? Director Groves, is there a second? Director Arce? It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 3:27.